How's it feel?
It's good to be back. It's good to be back. We were excited, my family and I. We loved it here the last 3 years. And to be able to stay here, it's exactly what we wanted. Have some stability for my kids is huge. It's a big deal for us.
How excited were Logan, Ross, and Cam when you told them?
They were excited, getting the band back together. We got a good group. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we want to be back. Those guys are special talents, special guys, special families. They got a great family, and they've kind of taken my family in with them. Got to spend some time with them at the Pro Bowl a couple weeks ago, and it's a good group to bring those guys back. With us, Luke Thompson, my assistant's able to come back as well. I tell them all the time, not only those three guys, but the rest of the group, we wouldn't be back if they didn't play as well as they did. So they're a huge part of it, the way they played every single day. That's why we're here. So they were excited. It's great for everybody.
You mentioned Luke coming back as well. What kind of impact could that just continuity have?
I mean, continuity. The guys love him. He works with the Gunners outside. He works field goal block. We blocked 2 kicks last year. It was a big part of what we were doing. Our Gunners played fantastic. So he does a really good job, across the board. The guys love him. So just bringing everybody back together. We did a good job. We got to continue to get better. That's the best part is, Cam will be in his second year, so things are going to change a little bit for him. But that's part of the progression. We'll keep working with him. Ross and Logan, they got to stay at that level. That's the standard, Pro Bowl level. Let's keep it that way and keep growing everybody else. And I think that's the beauty of it. We got good continuity, but let's keep getting better with it.
And then what are your impressions of Liam and just getting to know him so far?
Great energy. I mean, that's what you're going to see. Whenever you talk to him, it's always good energy. He's young, energetic, and he's going to tell you how he feels, which I think is a great quality. I mean, him and I have hit it off, really well. And the staff he's brought together, great energy, young guys, and some of the cool stuff, the camaraderie, I think, stuff that we're going to do of getting together for some dinners, at the Combine and some of those things. That's really what's going to bring the staff together. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take bringing all this staff together from different places, getting them ready to go. The player's going to show up in no time at all. So we got to get all on the same page.
Outside of your kicker, punter, long snapper, how many guys do you feel like you may need 1 or 2 more core guys, or do you think what you have is enough to have the kind of special teams coverage, get all that stuff that you want?
My guys were great last year, and if everything stayed the same, fantastic. But the reality of special teams, it obviously comes all the way down, and a lot of times it ends up being the back half of the roster. So that's something, with Liam, general manager, we're going to have to all come together and figure out what is the best formula to win. And so the reality is we may lose a guy or two. Hey, guess what? Next guy up, maybe it's a draft pick, maybe it's a practice squad guy. That's part of my job and Luke Thompson's job of how can we get the most out of the roster and elevating these guys' play. So every year the cliche is the roster changes every year, especially on special teams. We're going to have to bring up some young guys. We're going to lose a player or two because of free agency or whatever that looks like. We're going to have to develop more players, and we're going to do that. And whether it's a rookie or a practice squad guy, a young player, let's get the most out of him.
So Doug they parted ways with Doug on January 6th, and then two weeks later, something like that, they hired Liam. How long would you say you were kind of in limbo about, you wanted to stay here, but you also have to, get something else lined up in case that doesn't happen? So how long was the limbo? Like 10 days or?
We were right in that, in that area, and the best part about it from day one, the cons, the organization made it very clear they wanted me here, and that was a big part of where we were going forward. And so I had that going. I did get some interest, but ultimately we wanted to be here. The organization wanted us here, and so it was a clear-cut deal for my family and I. This was the best situation. blend in with this new crowd of staff, and make the best of it here. And let's do this. Let's figure out a way to win. Obviously, adding Baselli will be a huge part of that. Tony's a good friend of mine. I think those are what's going to take for us to win. So those are all big factors on why we wanted to be here. But it started with the Cons. I think that's the biggest thing. Mr. Con, Tony, they obviously wanted us here, which is I don't know if there's a better person you guys that you'd want to have you in your corner.
Could you talk a little bit about what you think Tony, meaning Baselli, will bring to the organization?
I mean, he's been around it forever. Obviously, a Hall of Famer. What he's done for this, for this team, and then of course the city. It means so much to him. And when you talk to him, I've never seen him so excited about something, about just this project of the challenge of getting us to be a winner. And every time I talk to him, he says, "We're going to get this thing rolling." And you could just feel his excitement, and that's what we need. We need that good juice, that good energy of where this is going, where this is headed. We got the right guys in place. Let's get it rolling. I think that's a great message of like, this is where it starts right here, and let's get it to a winner. But nobody's more passionate about this organization than Tony Baselli.
Now that the year's over, what did you look at in terms of the new kickoff rule? Did you like it? No. I mean, what would be your recommendation going forward with it?
I mean, it'll be interesting to see if we make any changes to it. I think we'll learn more at the Combine. That's kind of when we get together and kind of go through some of the possibilities. The average drive start was over 29 yards. Touchback was the 30-yard line. So that's kind of one of those things we got to look at, and how does that affect, drive start and all that. And I think we got to get better at it. We learned a ton throughout the season, but that's the biggest project for probably all special teams coaches, is taking a look at what we did, what the top groups did on kickoff and kickoff return. What did they do? What did we do? And how can we get better at it? What are they doing that we weren't doing? I got to do a big study on. That's my biggest projects this offseason. How can we get better to make sure it's number one kickoff return group next season?
Would you fight for it to stay the same or change? Or what would your recommendation be if the league was like, hey, what do you guys want to do?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is that 29 point, I think it's 29.6 drive start. I think that's the biggest thing, is how do we fix that? There's a couple different ways to look at it. Do you move the kicker back to the 30-yard line, make it tougher to kick touchbacks, or do you put the touchbacks to the 35? I think those are probably the two possibilities, and moving it back to the 30-yard line would be great. I think that'd be a great challenge. It would up the value to a kicker, and it makes the importance of having a good kicker so valuable. That I think is it's a big part of the game. The kicker position, whether it's you see in the playoffs with the big field goals, and then also the kickoff aspect, that's a huge portion of the game, and I think that's an important specific quality that if a kicker, if a specialist has, it's a good thing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
How you doing, Coach?
Doing good. How you doing?
Well, so could you just talk a little bit about just your excitement for this opportunity and what you see from this defense, which, quite frankly, really had a lot of struggles last year?
I couldn't be more excited about this opportunity, really, to work with these guys. Just looking at the players, looking at the roster, that'd probably be the most exciting part of it for me. Getting to know some of the guys being in here, it's been awesome. So pretty fired up about it. Obviously, the opportunity to work here, work with Liam, I'm amped up. I'm amped up in every which way.
Why did you want to work?
I think that's a good question. Both Northeast guys, but we've known each other for quite a bit. Working the camps, circuits over the years in college. But really just his energy, what I got from talking to him, he's the right type of guy. His vision, his toughness. I'm really, really fired up about that.
What's your vision for the defense?
In terms of
What's the product you want to put on the field?
I think the most important thing you talk about when you talk about defense is your play style. My vision for us defensively, we want to be a tough, fast, physical, violent at the point of attack team. What does that mean? All right, that means that you got guys who take pride in not getting blocked. Everybody talks about running to the ball. I don't think there's another person in the world who believes in running to the ball more than I do. But you can't run to the ball if you don't get all the blocks. And that is something that's going to be celebrated in our room. It's going to be celebrated in the culture of our team. There's going to be there's a point in every play where somebody tries to block you, right? Your passion to not stay blocked is really what makes plays on defense. Coaching, scheme, all that stuff, that's great, really important. But at the end of the day, the players win the game. And the violence at the point of attack, the effort, the strain, and the finish that it takes to not stay blocked and run to the football, that's what really creates a great defense. We want guys that are going to play with their shoulders square, be able to read everybody's number and name tag every play, and attack contact, never turn it down. Those are tenets of a great defense. Those are tenets of all the great defenses in the history of football and the great defenses I've ever been around. But we have, when I watch that on the tape, when I watch the guys here, I see a lot of that. I see great effort, great strain, and meeting these guys. We got a lot of great people in here, guys I'm excited to coach. And you just asked about Liam, he's about the same things. He wants strain, he wants effort, and that's the environment I want to be in every day, and I know we can succeed in. Hopefully I answered your question well enough.
How far are you in the roster evaluation process at this point?
We're all just kind of going through that right now, all our coaches, letting everybody go through everything, positionally. I've been able to watch a lot of guys myself, but obviously with hiring the staff and evaluating the players right now, still I would say, relatively on the front end of it, in all fairness, and we're kind of collaborating and meeting on that as a defensive staff right now as well.
Do you feel you have to be done with that full evaluation before you go to the combine, or no?
Yeah, I'd like to be. I think we're close to that. And obviously there's a lot coming down the pipe, right? Free agents and obviously the draft with the combine coming up. So guys are working hard. They're in here, honestly, they're in here early and we're grinding until late night. I know I am, trying to make sure we put the best group of guys together and obviously do the best job in our evaluations.
How much tape would you say you've watched so far from last year?
I've watched a fair amount. I watched quite a bit of it, to be honest with you. And I have a lot of respect for the guys who coached here and the guys who played here last year because I see strain. I do. I see effort. I know maybe there wasn't the result that everybody wanted all the time, but I knew in coming here there was a lot of guys that I did or was excited with the opportunity to coach.
Specifically who? I'm assuming the pass rushers, cornerback.
Sure.
Linebacker.
Yeah, absolutely. There's guys. And then, at linebacker, I would say to you, I've evaluated a lot of these guys, probably know them a little bit better because you evaluate them pretty closely going into the draft every year, and that was my position. So there's really a bunch of guys I'm pretty familiar with, the way they play, their play style as college players. And then, you usually keep up with guys in the NFL and you see guys in crossover tape. But absolutely, we got some pass rushers, we have some interior D linemen, we have some toughness at linebacker, and we got some guys on the back end that I've been really impressed with.
From the tape that you watched, what would you say was the biggest issue? Is it simply a matter of just not winning enough one-on-one battles?
No, I've gotten less into that in terms of schematics. We're kind of moving forward on that and just looking at how everybody plugs into what we want to do moving forward. So I've probably spent less time on what all the issues are and more time on evaluating the players and their play style, their playability, to be honest with you, because that to me is like the most important thing for us right now, that we know our players and then we know our roster.
How many decisions do you make scheme-wise now as opposed to maybe the offseason when you really get hands-on with guys on the field?
Yeah, I think when you look at whenever you come into a place, you know, a new environment, like that kind of happened in Green Bay last year, to be honest with you, for me, right? I was in Miami for a bunch of years and went there. And as Jeff and I were kind of ripping it down to the studs and our defensive staff was building it from the ground up, you always evaluate what's in the building. You know what I mean? What do the guys do well, and how does that fit into our scheme? And I think great coaches always have the ability to be malleable with the scheme to fit what the players do best. So, yeah, that's part of it. And then as you go, for sure, like as your roster changes, you know, sometimes that affords you the opportunity to do a little bit more stuff or less.
When a defense doesn't get turnovers, what are the reasons for that?
I think one of the I could probably answer it better by saying the reason, in my opinion, for turnovers, I think a lot of that comes from vision on the ball. If you look at it statistically over the years in the NFL, a lot of takeaways occur with vision on the ball. I think like some of those happen in the Super Bowl. You know, some like you just think about some of the playoff games, some of the games that you've watched most recently. When you have vision on the ball, you have an opportunity to create a better opportunity to create takeaways. I also think that the guys that have great ball awareness and the guys that strain that as a team, you know, the units that really strain that, if you go back and look at it, how many attempts are you making on the ball? Whether that's punching the ball, right? Whether that's violent contact on the ball, how I'm clamping on a tackle. All those things can factor in to takeaways. And to me, you have to do a really, really good job studying that and presenting that information visually to the players. Get as many great visuals for them, knowing how people carry the ball, right? Is a guy late to the tuck after he catches the ball? Does he carry the ball on his inside arm near the sideline? Is he a guy that switches the ball in traffic? Is the ball off his body? Is he an elbow out runner? Those are the guys that you want to target, and you want to target them in specific ways. To me, there is a little bit of I don't want to say a science to that, but certainly a technique and a coaching philosophy to that.
Hyper-focus on details, like the small.
Absolutely. You know, and I think every drill you do, you know, like we've talked about this as a defensive staff, I don't want any drills that don't end without a tackle or a takeaway or an attempt at a takeaway. I don't. Because every play is going to end that way. You know, that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for, you know, a violent finish on a tackle, violently trying to separate somebody from the ball when the ball's in the air, or violently trying to take the ball away at the point of attack. So we need to be drilling that every day, you know, and that's on me to make sure we are.
Being with Coach Perkins in Green Bay last year, what was it about him that, you know, made it important for him to be on the staff with you?
Yeah, he had a great – Perk's got – you guys will meet him. He's got a great disposition. He's just super easy to talk to, great communicator. He's a really, really good teacher. And the dude is just like a tireless worker. I don't know if he sleeps. So he might be a vampire. But he works like an animal. So I have like such a deep respect for that, you know. And those are the guys like I always kind of gravitate to. You know, I love the guys that like do more, find a way, and just super detailed, like really clear, concise, direct, and easy to talk to. So the players really, you know, got along with him really, really well, and they were able to learn from him because he presents the information in a way that is easy to learn.
And then from your perspective, how important can a guy like Eric Armstead be, you know, with a new staff, just his leadership off the field, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at, you know, him winning the Man of the Year award and all that, speaks to the character of him, you know, the type of guy he is. I've gotten the chance to talk to Eric, so been awesome. And been around a bunch of guys who have coached him too, which is cool. But he's, absolutely, you know, the leadership qualities, that's super, you know, that excites you, keeps you super excited about that. But also, you know, watching the guy play over the years, he's got a great play style, big explosive guy, and he's had a ton of success in his career because of that. So excited to coach him without a doubt. One of the guys I'm definitely excited about.
Him as a defensive tackle?
Yeah, I think for the majority of his career, he's had so much success doing that. You know, he's a guy that's obviously, as you've seen last year, was able to move around a little bit, you know, so he's got some multiplicity to his skill set. But he's just a problem, honestly, wherever he is. You know, you watch him there, as he lines up on a tight end, that's not a great matchup. He lines up on a guard, Yeah, that's a tough matchup. So it's good to have guys that are a matchup problem. And he's had so much productivity inside over his career.
How tough is it to set, I guess, the tone or the mentality that you want to build for this defense? I mean, from maybe scratch, is it stuff through the off season? Is it bringing in the right kind of guys? What is it?
That's a great question. I think that's just your effort and the enthusiasm you come in the building with every day. You know what I mean? Like me personally, the coaches, the players, it's making sure that our mindset is right every day. And we're on it every day. It's not something you could talk about, though. You know what I mean? Like your meetings got to be that way. The practices got to be that way. Individuals got to be that way. Everything you want to go through with a fine-tooth comb with the intention of getting guys better. You know what I'm saying? Like everything you do is about getting guys better. Everything we do has to have a purpose, right? So like that's how we walk through. We walk through with detail. We all just kind of like sauntering in there and milling around. That can't be the case. It's got to be done with detail, and everything that we do individually with these guys. Look, we film the individual for a reason, right? You film the drills for a reason. You're watching those every day, trying to pick up little things that can help the guys play better and improve their technique so they can go out on Sunday and produce. But that environment, yeah, it's got to be about strain in everything we do, in my opinion.
Every coordinator has kind of like different levels of flexibility
Yeah.
when it comes to game plans on a week-by-week basis. Since this is your first foray into this, how flexible do you think you will be as things move along, whether it's with player suggestions, coach suggestions, things like that, that might be different from what you had intended to do?
Yeah, I think you have to be flexible. I think I've been really fortunate to be in a lot of systems defensively. I've been with some guys who, some of their best qualities are their flexibility and the system's flexibility. Meaning that I think a lot of people get into the, hey, are you a 3-4, are you a 4-3, are you a 4-2-5, what do you guys do on defense? I think when you look at all the teams, even the 3-4 teams, they play a bunch of 4 down. So like if you're looking at that, you'd be aware of that, and you see that there's flexibility within everybody's scheme. Sometimes the offense's personnel grouping forces you to be flexible, right? And then defensively, how do you make it hard on them? Do you play different groupings to those personnels? Maybe some stuff that they're not expecting, and playing to the strengths of your defense. So like even in Green Bay last year, we played a bunch of 4 down. We played a lot of 3 down spacing with 4 down people. Because we felt that gave us a better answer versus some of the things that we were seeing and let us be pretty flexible. So I think in this league, you have to be able to adjust, like in the game. In the game, you have to be able to adjust. To me, I think Brian Flores, I would say, the guy I work for, I thought he did a great job, of making sure everybody was seeing it that way. That in the game, the information is so valuable. And from drive to drive, we all have to be in great communication with each other to get into the next best call or the next, the next call, next series that's going to help us get off the field. So yeah, I mean, some of those guys I've learned a bunch from. I would say Vic Fangio is the same way, just super adaptable and super intelligent. Great guys to be around.
So you've worked with a variety of different coaches and defenses. How challenging is it for you to run the defense that you desire with the personnel that you have?
I don't think it's that challenging. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I have a very good idea. There's probably a better way to say that, of what I want to do, and doing that with the people we have in the building. I think what we want to do, part of the reason why this job is appealing, is I think with the people in the building, what I want this defense to be, it's a pretty good match. It's a pretty good fit. I feel like a lot of those guys fit into what we want to do, and they're going to have an opportunity to do it really, really well. And to me, like, that's on us, how hard we coach them, how well we coach them. I feel like we got some really good pieces in place to do that, to execute the scheme.
When you prepped, you were looking primarily at Jacksonville's offense. So did you learn things about the defense that you maybe didn't even recognize when you faced them this year?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm.
During the regular season matchup, primarily you looking at Jacksonville's offense.
Yes.
Did you learn stuff about the defense when you knew you were going to take this interview that maybe you weren't aware of before?
No, I think, really in the preparation for the game, obviously, like you said, it's primarily with the offense. I learned a lot about some of the personnel on offense. That excited me too, to be honest with you, because we had to go out and defend some of those guys, and they're very good players. So that part of it excited me also. But really more so in you watch some crossover tape and then getting ready, when you start interviewing, you start that process, you really start to do a deeper dive into the personnel and the pieces that are in the locker room that you would be working with. Yeah, that's really where I got most of my info and probably a better feel for that.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks,
Appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Hey, Coach.
How are you guys?
Obviously, it's a great opportunity for you, especially being as young as you are. Did you have any, any misgivings because you weren't going to be the play caller, or did you feel, hey, it's a coordinator job, I can learn from a guy who's done it and done it well?
No misgivings at all. This is a phenomenal opportunity to work with the guys here, the staff here, the organization here. So once I found out about this opportunity, I probably don't have enough words to describe how fired up I was to be able to work with Liam and the rest of the staff. So I know that element, that part of it, the play calling won't be a part of my role, but I'm looking forward to support and help the team win in any way I can.
What was the strongest connection that you sort of had with Liam? Was it direct? Was it indirect? How, because when you interview for these things, it's always somebody's either recommending him or there's a direct relationship.
Yeah, I think there's an element of all of those things that come together. I think ultimately that's probably a little bit of a question for Liam more so than me, but I think he takes into account the indirect recommendations, but the direct relationship is ultimately probably most important in my opinion, and from my perspective at least, my relationship with him, because he's the guy who I'm going to be working with every day, and he's the guy who's going to have to deal with me every single day. So if that's not good, then that's not a recipe for a good product.
Why did you want to work with Liam specifically? What about him or the offense that was really attractive for you?
Well, that'll be a long list too. So probably the same reasons that he's hired here, not just his track record, but what he's done with quarterbacks, what he's done with offense, what he's done in the run game, the pass game. There is an added benefit of us seeing things similarly, philosophically or schematically, but in terms of the football stuff, there's a wide array of things that I can learn from him and hopefully that I can bring to him and add to this team and to our offense. But from the football side of it, we see things very similar in terms of how we want to do things and how we want to attack things philosophically. Talk about being fundamentally sound, talk about attacking on offense, situational masters, and then most importantly, being tough. So having that shared identity and that kind of shared vision, that alignment from the top all the way down throughout our staff is a big deal to me, and I know it's a big deal to us collectively. And then on top of that, like I said, he's got to deal with me every single day, whether he likes it or not now. So there has to be some level of the person, the human being, the guy that he is, that comes into play that makes me ultimately so excited to be here and work with him and everyone else here.
What are your thoughts on Trevor, and how do you establish that relationship between you and Ian?
Yeah, I'm beyond fired up to work with Trevor. Like I said about Liam, probably the same thing with Trevor. I don't have enough words to explain how excited I am for the opportunity to work with him. The relationship side of it is something that takes time. Not just me getting to know him, but him getting to know me. This is a collaborative process. There are no dictatorships or anything like that in this business or on our team. Just like we're collaborative as a staff, we're collaborative with our players. So ultimately, if the players come first, it's players over plays, like Liam's probably told you guys a number of times. And if that's true, then we have to be willing to go above and beyond and do whatever it takes to put them in the best position for success. And part of that is committing the time and effort and resources to forming those relationships.
When you look at some of the other players that the Jaguars have on offense right now, what stands out?
I think that's still something that we're looking at as we put all this stuff together and you get to know guys and get to learn guys. You don't want to come to any premature conclusions on guys based on the past because you're focused on the present and moving forward. But just like I talked about with Trevor, you're excited about the opportunity to work with the potential that you see in these guys, whether it is up front, out on the edges, receiver position, tight end position, the backs, Trevor, basically down the line across the roster. There's a lot of excitement and tools and pieces that you can create a vision for within our system in a multitude of ways and using those guys to attack defenses in creative and innovative ways where, like I said, if we're trying to maximize our chance of players' success, building things around those guys and what they do well and taking advantage of that potential to get the most out of them. So our goal will to bring the best out of each guy and hopefully take that talent that you see and are so excited about and make each guy kind of have the best year of his career respectively, whatever that may look like. But it's that individual process first of bringing out the best in those guys and that talent, and that will hopefully create a good product as a whole collectively.
Being with Sean last year at Minnesota, what is it about him that makes him such a positive addition to the staff with you guys?
Yeah, Sean brings a lot to the table in terms of, once again, football-wise, the same thing I talked about with the coaching staff, whether it's schematic, philosophically, football-wise, the alignment there from Liam all the way to myself and down throughout the staff, but also the type of guy he is, the energy he brings, the relationships he forms with players, the relationships he forms with staff players. You're going to get a genuine, hardworking, caring guy that's going to go above and beyond, just like hopefully the rest of us will, to bring out the best in the players and each of us as staff members. The great thing about our relationship and kind of having that foundation there is he can be honest with me, I can be honest with him. I'm not going to be perfect, and I'm not going to pretend to be perfect. So you need to have those relationships and open and honest communication so that way people can tell you when I screw something up or misspeak. And thankfully, I can lean heavily on Sean to do that for me.
And then just those 3 years in Minnesota with Kevin, just how much did he influence you, and really what did you really learn about coaching in the game from him?
Yeah, well, how much time do we have? But he influenced me in probably more ways than I even recognize, to be honest with you. In terms of the game, seeing the pass game, seeing how you build an offense, seeing how you teach an offense and build that progression, and then most importantly, probably the quarterback position, how you develop that starting from the ground up, laying the foundation and scaffolding things in a true progression that allows those guys to learn and grow in an environment that maximizes their chance of success. So I could probably go on for hours about what that kind of process looks like, but from a football standpoint, he kind of covers all the bases in terms of you learn things explicitly and implicitly in terms of just concepts or certain schemes and philosophies, but all the way down to the detail on how those concepts are executed or how those concepts are implemented or how those concepts are game planned. I think that's something that he does at a really high level, and the results kind of speak for itself with him and the success he's had there in Minnesota and even prior to that. And then on top of that, my role, I was in a very fortunate position to be with him and spend so much time with him. Seeing the connector that he is and the type of person that he is and the impact that he has on people's lives, not just in the meeting room and with us as coaches or with the players, but even beyond with the entire organization. From everybody in that building or everyone that walks through that building feels his impact and his presence and the culture that he's set there. And that pays dividends and kind of has a ripple effect beyond his immediate reach.
It, from the outside, looks like a very youthful staff. Does it feel that way when you guys are getting together? Does it feel like a young staff? And what's the advantage of having a staff of younger guys?
I probably wouldn't describe it like that. I would say we have an energetic staff for sure. So maybe that's how I would look at it there. But in the sense of youth, I think you feel the energy, the excitement, the passion for football, for coaching, and the work that goes into making this thing ultimately what we want it to be. And I think that carries over not only into our interactions with each other so far, but I think that will show up in our relationships with the players and the relationships, hopefully, with everyone else in the building. So I think the energy there is palpable.
Does it feel different than maybe the staff that you started on in Carolina in 2020?
every staff is different. Every staff is unique, certainly. At the end of the day, football is still played by people. It's still coached by people. So it's individuals. So it's certainly different in some ways. There are probably some ways that it's similar. But ultimately, every staff you're on is different. Even year to year, you typically have a guy leave. It's just like players on the coaching staff. It's never going to be the same exact staff every year. So there's certainly some differences.
Not to get too far ahead with players, but what are your thoughts on Brian Thomas Jr. and just the prospects of having a weapon like that?
Yeah, excitement. Once again, so probably that'll be the same thing I answer for probably 10 of these questions is excitement overall. Like we talked about with the players and the opportunity to work with these guys, he's one of the guys where you watch the tape and it's hard to stay seated watching his tape, just in terms of the excitement and the tools and the ability that he has and the potential there for, you saw the results this year, but the potential for growth beyond this year and the different ways you can use him to attack defenses in a multitude of ways.
You mentioned being excited about working with Trevor. What stands out that you're excited about?
There's a lot that stands out. Once again, the physical talent, you can see, and you guys probably have had more time watching it than even me over the course of the past couple of years. The most exciting thing for me is the guy and the person as I've started to form this relationship, because like I said, the quarterback position is still played by a person. It's still a human being back there who's got to stand back there and navigate tight pockets and hits and escape and deal with 10 other guys in the huddle, all 11 on defense, and make those decisions and snap judgment. So the person that we're getting to deal with and work with on a day-to-day basis is super exciting for me because, listen, if we're up here spending as much time as we do trying to pour ourselves into somebody, he's the type of guy that you want to invest time in.
We'll talk a lot about the quarterback in the passing game, but the running game last year for the Jaguars was inconsistent. How important is it to kind of develop that trench play and have that running game on offense?
Yeah, we'll be multiple, and we want to be a complete offense in the sense that we have the ability to attack defenses in a variety of ways, whether that is in the run game or the pass game or screen game, whatever that may be. You need to kind of have all the tools in the bag and then find the way to make those players, or take those tools and fit them to the players that you have. So it comes down to how can we take what our guys execute well, and put those players in the best position for success. So the run game is a piece of that, without a doubt, because we never want to become one-dimensional. We always want to be dictating, and having the ability to run the ball and run on our terms and be attacking, like I talked about earlier, kind of is predicated on the ability to do that down in and down out.
Pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, I appreciate it.